in 2 days, I've hardly mentioned Brexit. I can't quite believe that. Yeah. There's some people here from some pretty big companies, you know. Are we, at the moment, a bit head in the sand about it? You know, we've had all kinds of chief executives and so on coming into the BBC and talking to us privately, and everyone's just a bit like, well, I don't know, a bit wait and see. No one quite knows what to do. Are we in danger of sort of taking our eye off the ball a bit about this impending potential problem? I'll throw that out there to one of the big companies. Leslie, what do you think? Are we prepared for any kind of Brexit?
Well, I think we know there's a heck of a lot of disruption, and we know the world is changing at a rapid pace. And we're doing as much as we can to prepare for that as an organisation. So we are looking at our skills, we're looking at the volume of skills, but we're also looking about how we go about delivering the services to our clients and the different ways that we can approach that. We're recruiting apprentices, we're recruiting from other sectors, and we're acutely aware that we're going to have to be very agile as an organisation going forward.
Is the big issue going to be visas, ultimately, and you just don't know what's going to happen with them, so you just actually don't know where you're going to get the staff from, and you might have to make some very quick decisions.
I think agility will be key, because none of us have got a crystal ball, and we don't know how the Brexit deal is going to be structured.
Yeah. Phil, how about Balfour Beatty? Where are you with it?
I think I agree with everything that Leslie said. I think one of the problems of our society is that we don't complain, do we? So we let things happen to us. And one of the big issues that we have talked around today is around collaboration. And actually, rather than individual businesses getting involved, we actually need to come together and work together, work out what the problem is, and through bodies like SUSE and Seeker, actually have open and honest discussions around what is actually going to happen. I'm being a little bit woolly because we don't actually know what is going to happen, but I think as a collective we need to have those open and honest discussions so that the people ultimately making those decisions have the full facts in front of them.
So you might not be able to tell me, but what are the interactions with politicians like at the moment when you talk about these issues?
I think it's an interesting place because we've actually collaborated with a number of organisations and put in a very strong submission to government around, particularly around the engineering implications of Brexit, identifying about 5 key issues, not only about labour but also about research and development that we think is going to be or potentially really affected by Brexit, whatever type of Brexit. But I think it's quite a difficult one to engage with the sector on, partly because people, quite rightly, aren't quite sure what it is really going to mean for them. And I think there's also a little bit about it's a difficult problem, so perhaps if we don't talk about it, it might get resolved somewhere else. So, if you look at the big issues for government around, particularly around the housing agenda as well, and the numbers on that, transport and infrastructure is absolutely critical, and the pipeline and what's going to be delivered, depending on what's negotiated, is going to be either disrupted slightly or disrupted massively. And I think, we should be having that conversation and really linking it into the other big agendas that the government is trying to deliver on.
Another thing that came up, and Glenn, you touched on this a little bit as well, about retraining and age, and effectively got a sense that perhaps we're assuming, all apprenticeships are really young, and it's all about getting young people trained up and through, and we're not thinking enough about good old middle-aged people who've still got a lot to offer. And do you think we do undervalue middle age at the moment? Perhaps some companies just see them as a bit expensive and a bit stuck in the mud, and we're not taking advantage of that untapped potential.
I'm not speaking from an empirical and certainly from an employer perspective, but I think there is a strong sense, and it's been coming through today, that not that we're doing things to the exclusion of all else but young apprentices, but there is a sense that, with reference to the pipeline, it's a sense that we're making new entrants to the profession as our main focus, whereas I think, across those of us here, how many more years do we have in our careers, and actually long enough to, in theory, to retrain and reorientate to some very different roles. And I think you alluded to how people are changing, moving into management roles and so on. Clearly, there's a question over how expensive that part of the labour force is compared to younger entrants. But I think what was interesting to me at this Later Living conference was a reminder that far from it being this evil government move to increase pension age, it can actually be good for your physical and mental health to stay in some form of employment for longer. And so there's an incentive, I think, from that later living workforce to remain part of our sector. And clearly they've got huge amounts to offer, provided they've got that, again, the leadership framework to be sufficiently open-minded and prepare themselves to adapt just as those younger entrants are coming in and mixing with them in the workplace.
Talking of younger people, I mean, universities are often complaining about the kind of people they get from the school system, the sort of quality of people coming through, particularly in sort of STEM subjects as well. What's your personal experience of the young people that are coming through and how well educated they are?
I think it would be fair to say that, yes, we feel that difficulty. I mean, there's a huge diversity of entrants to higher education. I'm not at Oxford or Cambridge, so we won't get the absolute top mathematicians coming from, private education, perhaps straight into the university. Our job is to work with those young entrants and take them on a journey so that as they're emerging, they're much better equipped than when they entered. But it clearly is challenging for us, and you'll find colleagues providing, extracurricular provision for things like mathematics to ensure that people from different backgrounds are getting up to speed. And I think when you move to postgraduate level, you've got the challenge that, of course, you're specialising, but you're wanting to encourage a diversity of entrance into those specialisms. And I was interested to hear your cyber ethnography. We've had people on our Transport Masters course from forensic science to geography to, environmental science to mathematics. And so how you reorientate those people and position them in a way that they can engage with the specialism that you're offering them, it is a challenge.
Mark, you're far more across the tech than we are, basically. Is there a danger that we've got this sort of big skills shortage and we're all sitting there moaning about it, and then before we know it, people have developed systems that replace people with technology?
Yeah, so I think it was interesting to hear Sue's comments. So I think it is inevitable that technology will do more roles that humans do today. But actually, I've seen evidence that would suggest that the areas of opportunity that opens creates a revenue stream that wasn't previously available. That the economics that we live in today, I mean, I see it every day. We have local authorities, NHS trusts, that simply are failing to support the services that they're delivering today and the demand that is placed on them with an ageing workforce, etc. So they almost can't afford to employ services that were delivered in a traditional people-based organisation. Technology has to come in to deliver some of those services more cheaply. But I think we're a long way off, and we are a people business. We're about 90,000 staff. We are a long way off technology replacing all that humans do. And if I use the hospital context, actually, yes, we deployed robots to do the more mundane sides of delivering food and delivering linen and emptying bins, etc. Actually, that means that the staff that we do have are able to spend more time with patients. And we did some behavioural analysis, some observational analysis that proved that in a hospital setting, our staff would typically see a patient 26 times a day. That was often 26 more times more than they would see a doctor. And what we could then focus on was not just the facilities management side of catering and cleaning, but actually the care side of having conversations with them and engaging with them that actually was proven to deliver better outcomes for the patients as well. So technology is inevitably going to have an impact and possibly a negative impact in some people's eyes, but I don't think it's all bad.
Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. Some really interesting thoughts. Thank you very much for coming to the final session. Highways UK is now officially closed. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you.